Hi, friends. Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. Murder trials are not like you see on television. Television shows like LA Law and Boston Legal and that sort of thing. You see basically 2 to 3 minutes of a courtroom scene and you see all the drama. But that is not what a jury sees when they witness a murder trial. Instead, what they get is an introduction at the beginning in the opening statements that says, hey, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to show you. And then they get several days of testimony about what happened and how it happened and how the police put everything together. And then you hear from critical witnesses. And unfortunately, this is something that I criticize trial lawyers about all the time, and both civil trial lawyers and criminal trial lawyers do the same thing. Prosecutors and plaintiffs' attorneys do the same thing. They try this case, the case they're trying now, like the last successful case that they tried. And that's not always a bad thing, in that many cases are very similar to each other. But they're not all the same. In fact, there are some great differences. And what you want to avoid if you are trying a case is, very much like the rule in every jury trial is not to honk off the judge. You don't want to put the jury into a state of suspended animation while you bring out tons of data that they don't need. And in this particular case, I think you're getting a lot of information that the jury just really doesn't need. Now, let's go back to the opening statement here of Adam Montgomery's defense attorney, where he talks about the things that the jury can and should convict Adam Montgomery of.
The only reason Kayla has to lie now is to protect herself. The only reason she has to lie and point the finger at Adam is because the truth points the finger at her. The only reason Kayla has to lie to make Harmony's death so brutal and foul by Adam is to hide that Adam was protecting Kayla, his wife, and the mother of his kids. Now look, I'm not pretending that Adam isn't innocent here. Adam is not an innocent here.
Smart.
He and Kayla covered up Harmony's death. He's not an innocent here. He and Kayla moved Harmony's body from place to place to keep it hidden.
Excellent.
And Adam is not an innocent here. He
This is good
and
strategy.
Kayla put her body in a shower to wash her remains of the fluids of decomposition, and then permanently hid her remains. You can and should find him guilty of those crimes. But
tampering with evidence and desecration of a corpse, you can't desecrate a corpse if it's not a corpse. So there is no need to prove that Harmony Montgomery is dead in this case, because the defense has already admitted that. They've admitted that Harmony Montgomery was a corpse that he essentially took and disposed of in some way. Now, his theory is he did it to protect Kayla, and of course Kayla's theory is he did it to protect himself, and only those two probably know what actually happened. But the long and short of it is there is no need to go through a lot of data that shows that Harmony was killed, because that has already been established. When the state is going through its proof, it could very easily tailor its proof to a couple of things. One of those was Kayla Montgomery's testimony, where she laid out how Harmony died. They could put up the testimony of Kevin Montgomery, as they did, to show that, he had harmed the child in the house previously. And then they can offer whatever other evidence they have that shows that that Adam Montgomery did it. So, given that, you have to wonder about testimony like this.
When you get to a scene for a tow, what are some of the very first things that you do, just generally?
Just contact whatever vehicle's involved and find out what's going on and where it's going.
And from there, when you do have to use a tow, what kind of tow truck are we talking about?
Flatbed. So
Flatbed?
the big ones, yeah.
So, Mr. Sweeney, if you just turn around just for the briefest of moments, and is that a copy of State's Exhibit 3A that you have in front of you?
Yes.
Fair to say it's kind of hard to read at that size, isn't it? Is it easier on the paper?
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay. Well, I'd like to go ahead and kind of go through a little bit of the information that you filled out on this form, and you could tell us a little bit more about the tow. First of all, where did you go to make this tow?
Corner of Webster and Elm.
One of the things that's important with all evidence is chain of custody. And so they are trying to establish a chain of custody here on this automobile from the time that it was towed, taken to the police department, and the time they went through it to look for all the different things and things like blood. And if any of that pointed directly at Adam Montgomery, it might be relevant. But this particular testimony is just fluff, it's filler, and I am having a really hard time figuring out why they're putting it on. Nothing this guy says other than chain of custody, which he could have gotten in about maybe 5 minutes worth of questions. Instead, what you wind up with is this long dissertation about how a tow truck driver does his job. The jury doesn't need to know that. The jury just needs to know it was towed to the police impound lot, and then they pick up with the police impound and the search of the vehicle. Again, assuming that's relevant. Now, let's keep going here.
Yes, sir.
And where was that Dunkin' Donuts?
It's located at Beach Street in Manchester, New Hampshire.
While you were there, did you ever work with somebody by the name of Adam Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
And with regards to Adam Montgomery, do you know who his wife is? Or was?
Kayla Montgomery.
Did you meet her there as well?
Yes, sir.
And how long did you work there with Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery?
Probably around a year or so.
How long overall did you work at that Dunkin' Donuts?
I think I worked there 2 years.
Did you get the job, or were you working there when Adam Montgomery started working there, or was he working there when you got there?
He was already employed when I got there.
And what about Kayla Montgomery?
Same.
Same thing?
So the reason they put this gentleman up, who used to work with the two of the principals in this case at the Dunkin' Donuts, the reason they put him up was to get in some text messages where Kayla and Adam had been requesting that he come help them and help jump their car so that they could get going again because they were having car trouble. And this is occurring in the middle of the night. And of course, they are actually living in the car at this point, so the text messages have sort of an element of urgency about them. And pretty much all they manage to achieve, at least if you listen to the comments that show up in the live stream when these cases are playing, one of the things that they managed to establish is that this fellow is a bit of a jerk who wasn't willing to come help somebody that he knew. Beyond that, the messages themselves point no finger at either Kayla or Adam Montgomery. They are simply additional information about how all this family wound up living in their car and the car quit working and all the bad things that happened thereafter. But again, not relevant to the key issue in the case which is, did Adam Montgomery kill Harmony Montgomery? As a result, anytime you throw additional information at the jury that is irrelevant, the jury goes back into the jury room and winds up saying, well, they talked a lot about these text messages. What can we learn from these text messages? Instead of laser focusing their case on Adam Montgomery. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but let's keep going.
Again, State's Exhibit 10. This is the toothbrush that you recovered from that trunk?
Yes, sir.
On that toothbrush, I believe you testified earlier on in direct that it was identified that you logged it in as JMT7. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit 66 for identification purposes only. Yes, go ahead and look at the label and feel the bag. Do you recognize that particular packaging as well as the object inside?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what is that packaging? How do you recognize the packaging?
It's the brown bag that I place it into.
And does it have your initials on it, JMT7?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, if I would borrow a pair of scissors, I'd like the witness to be able to open it. Mr. Tucker, since we are talking about a toothbrush, I wonder if you would be willing
Yes,
to
sir.
put on a pair of gloves for us and be able to open that bag. I noticed that you're going to put it on a second glove. Can you please tell the jury why?
So most of the time when you're processing crime scenes, there's a lot of evidence, and you put on a fresh pair of gloves every time you collect the evidence. And if you don't have double gloves, your hands become very sweaty, and it becomes very difficult to put on a fresh pair of gloves. So it's just easier, especially if you're doing blood swabs and things of that nature. But that's how I was always taught, so that's how I do it.
Fair to say, instinct.
Yes, sir.
You should please go ahead and use those scissors to open up.
Do you have a preference on where?
I would say ask, please, you would please go ahead and cut in an area where there isn't a label,
Okay.
maybe on the side. Just large enough for the item. Let me ask you, without taking the item out of the bag, just looking into the bag. Do you recognize this one?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize this to be?
The toothbrush from the vehicle.
And once again, I'm really not certain what good it does to show the toothbrush and the images of stuff that was collected from the trunk. We know the child is dead, and we know that either Kayla or Adam Montgomery killed her based on the admissions of Adam Montgomery and the testimony of Kayla Montgomery. So if you're putting up that toothbrush just to, sort of tug at the heartstrings of the jury, I'm not even sure that's, if I were sitting in that jury right now, I'd be like, why are they doing this? You see, all they really need to do is tie the murder to Adam Montgomery, because that's who they've charged with murder. So if that's who they've charged with murder, and he's already admitted that the child is dead, what you have to show is that he caused that death. And I think through Kayla Montgomery's testimony, they got that. And now they put on Kayla Montgomery's mom.
So, beginning in the winter, December of 2019, at some point did you receive a phone call from your daughter?
I've spoke to her a couple times. I'm not sure exactly which particular one you're...
Let me be more specific. At some point, did you ever see her and Adam and the two boys at your house, but not with Harmony?
Yes.
And when did that occur in December of 2019?
That was, it was before December. It was shortly after Thanksgiving because I had just put my tree up. And I don't remember the exact date. I just remember shutting off the overhead lights so that the kids could see the Christmas lights and the ornaments.
Okay. And that's when you saw Harmony that
That's
time?
when I saw Harmony.
Later in the month, did they come back to stay with you, for a longer period of time than just one afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. And when they came the second time, was Harmony still there?
No, she wasn't.
And again, I'm not sure what any of that is doing. And if that was not bad enough, then listen to the cross-examination that you have here with the defense attorney on the detective involving the disassembly of the car.
And was part of your role to make sure that the camera was functioning?
Nope. Nope. Detective O'Leary set that camera up on the tripod and had all the settings. You had to use specific settings, like shutter length that it's open for type of thing.
And you were just ready with the swabs.
Yes. And then
And what you were waiting for was to see a reaction, right?
correct.
And it would manifest itself with a light blue color.
Right.
It's a light blue color that would last for roughly 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's not very long.
But that 30 to 60 second reaction would suggest the presence of blood.
Yes, sir.
Blood that the naked eye cannot see.
Correct.
Blood that could have been cleaned up.
Correct.
So when there was that reaction, you would take those swabs, right? And get samples
Right.
from that area that was illuminated.
Correct.
And you mentioned 2 swabs. One swab would be used to later provide to the State Forensic Laboratory.
Right.
All he managed to do was go over and point out all of the things that the state simply wants the jury to know. Now, the jury doesn't need to know that to convict him because none of that ties directly to Adam Montgomery. Sure, the luminol or blue star or whatever they call it, luminol showed up and they could tell that there was blood in the trunk and they did DNA testing and all of that. Super duper. That's good information to have, and it does establish in some respects that Harmony McDaniel bled in the trunk, but it doesn't establish that he killed her, and it doesn't establish that Adam Montgomery made her bleed in the trunk. And he's already admitted essentially that he put her into a duffel bag and rinsed her body off and did a number of other things. They admitted that in the opening statement. So that relieves the state of having to prove any of this. And basically what the problem that I have with this case at this point is both the prosecution and the defense are bludgeoning this jury with facts they do not need. This is one of those things where you need to call a timeout, figure out what else there is left to prove it, and then get to closing statements. Save the jury some time and save them some heartache. Nobody wants to think about this poor child being beaten and abused any longer than they have to. And the beating of the dead horse here is not helping anybody. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments down below or email me at the address above. I have to tell you that this is one of those days where I'm going to go out and do some fun things with my wife. I'm recording this on Valentine's Day, and of course, we always make Valentine's Day a big day in our house because that's the day that I proposed. And she accepted. Pretty important to put that in there, too. So we're going to go have some fun. We're going to buy each other a couple of things. We buy stuff for each other all throughout the year. And so it's always hard at Christmas and birthdays to figure out what to get because we do things throughout the year for each other. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to, buy each other new pads for our new covers for our iPad. And I'm really looking forward to that. So I hope you had a great Valentine's Day. And I really and sincerely hope that you are in a relationship with somebody who is taking good care of you and you're taking good care of them. God bless you all. Have a terrific day. And then catch me down here at the beach again next time. I try very hard not to be like all those other YouTubers who open up every video by asking you to subscribe before you've even seen the content. But now that you've gone a few minutes into the content, if you find this interesting and helpful, please subscribe. I'd consider it a personal favor. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.
you.